All right, and Jim does not join us just in time. And Rick is not here right now, so I start this off by myself. When Rick comes in, we'll hear about the great sponsors that we have. And there's Jim. And of course, we're going to lean on Jim a little bit more today to discuss.
Don't lean on me.
Well, we're going to discuss a little bit what's going on in Detroit, as well as some other local ballot initiatives. But let's check out the sponsors now that Rick is back and he's consumed his pills. And nice. Get rolling. Here we go.
Jazz Cabbage Cafe is sponsored by the Botanical Company, Redemption Canna, Real Leaf Solutions, the Detroit Nutrient Company, GrowGreenMI.com, and 420promotions.com.
That's right. I didn't even have to say it this time. And we'll get that made official, of course, at some point. Jamie is a workhorse. That's right.
Indeed.
Great sponsors. I mean,
one of the names.
Maybe especially Grow Green, I think. I mean, I don't know what Tony knows about those guys or not, but they're really cool.
Yeah. We'd like the Grow Green MI folks for sure.
Cheers. Various hand gestures here. More cheers. And more cheers. Lots of cheer to go around. And it is much appreciated. A little bit more. Of course, Bros Grow Show, which is a great show. And, it's a polarity science, I think. And, there's just other shows that are just in that family, that lineup. The people that are all good. And they discuss important topics and take on really good discussions and have good guests and all that kind of stuff.
Lady Gardens too with that group. She's awesome.
Yeah. Oh wow, here he is. We got a check-in from Europe.
What?
Hey man,
what's happening?
Hey, we're just getting started, and
timing is everything.
Now it's official. So. I was on Cannabis Lifestyles last night. I mean, Rick and I were on there before one time talking about this stuff. That's a really good show, too. And Medical Mondays was pretty wild last night. I went for like 3 hours, and the guys from House of Dank were on there.
Yeah, I heard they ate a lot of crow.
Yeah,
I've been told that I missed a very good, important show. I would have really gotten into it, so I'll watch it tonight.
It's got an extra hour of fun to watch when you go back and check it out. So I was up till pretty late last night. It was a circular discussion. I mean, either you accept where they are or you don't, and depends on how deeply where your definitions are for when you're at the point of helping the MCMA or whatever whatever the standard is.
All I know is I just had a revelation on a live I was on recently. And I pointed out that to me, this House of Dank thing is kind of like, as a straight guy, it's kind of like the gay lifestyle. You're welcome to it. You can do what you want. That may work for you. I just have to be accepting of it. And I can look and avoid you and do whatever to my heart's content. But I have to let the industry do what it wants. And this industry is full of people and groups like that are just willing to chase the mighty dollar. And, we have to accept that. There's going to be people like that there's nothing wrong with it. It's what it is. The question is, how do you rise above that? And how do you put it out there that you're not like the other ones? And, how do you become the botanical companies of the world, not the, or the luxury louds of the world.
The rare cannabis,
yeah.
Rare, how do you purposely avoid that whole situation,
Just as important, Adam, how do you have to conduct yourself as you feel comfortable and not let the actions of others take you off your own individual game, take you off your own individual positions. Because when you let other people dictate whether you're angry, whether you're unhappy, whether you do good radio, whether you do shitty radio, that's up to you. you know, that doesn't have anything to do with other people other than your own individual moral compass. So,
Well, yeah, and it's just unfortunate because, you know, these guys claim to be the #1 dispensary in the state of Michigan.
boy, based on what? I mean,
My question for you three is, any of you guys been in there?
nope.
I may have been in an old version of it. You know, they've been
Yeah,
around
so-
in different
so here's
incarnations
my
for years.
question.
Yeah.
Well,
Here's
Steve
my
and Bobby
question
for sure back in the
somebody-
day. Yeah.
Here's my question for somebody that represents what they claim to be the best anything, let alone weed dispensary that maybe a Rick Thompson might wander into, or a Jamie Lowell, or Jim Salame, or maybe a Mr. Hash Bash. I mean, these are 4 guys that you would think would have been into all kinds of dispensaries. And what's keeping me from going in? I don't play with guys like that. I don't play with people that do that. I don't want to be seen or be a part of it. I don't want anybody to see me coming in or going out. Now, that's for everybody. That doesn't apply to House of Dank. But they're claiming to be the best. And my question is, what separates you from the rest? And
We're
how
talking
come
about
I
House
haven't been
of
there if
Dank
you're the
right now,
best?
but he means these types of places in general too at the same time. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Alan?
of course. It
Okay.
applies to anybody that says they're the best in this game.
Yeah.
You know?
And so,
I mean, listen, I got a kick out of all these idiots screaming and hollering what number licensed event they were. Oh, no, we're the second. No, we're the third. No, they did one on the west side of the state. Well, wait a minute. They did one here. Well, hey, what about this? And what? Are you kidding? I've been putting on illegal events for 25 years. Fuck you people and your licenses. Sorry. I get a little out of control.
hey, so before you get too far out of control, what's going on in Amsterdam?
Well, I've been here for less than 12 hours. And so far, shitty weed. There was a weed competition, and a buddy of mine was given a 60-item judge's kit. He looked through it and withdrew from the competition as a judge. But the nice thing about shitty weed is you can mix it with really good hash. So we've been smoking some really good hash. Went out for a nice steak dinner. Found out there's a little package of some Peruvian marching powder available. I mean, it's been a good day. So and the what do they call him here? He's not the president. The prime minister was on TV tonight talking about the updated COVID restrictions and what's happening in Amsterdam or in Holland. But this was amazing. I'm in a coffee shop, bunch of Dutch guys. They turned the TV up loud so they could hear it. It's in Dutch, of course. And all of a sudden, these guys start hooting and hollering at the TV. Yeah. Someone turns to me and my partner and says, the prime minister just said that all workers have to wear a mask except sex workers. Now, think about that.
We can't have a mask on for some things.
The United States caught shit for saying I didn't have sex with that woman, which is exactly what you would expect the president to say, whether it was true or not. And here is the prime minister of Holland on national TV saying, hey, everybody's got to wear a mask except the hookers.
They're less uptight over there, I think, aren't they?
Well, don't forget, prostitution is legal here.
Right.
Mind you, cannabis is not. Prostitution is legal. It's regulated and taxed. So the government is a party to it. So they have to protect their workers. But looks like you no longer need to wear a mask when you're visiting the red light. So, but I thought that was.
You mentioned Detroit and you mentioned cannabis. Jamie and I had some Detroit Bud Company Moon Rocks recently that was awesome. And then Detroit Diesel right here.
Yeah.
These guys.
I got the
have
Sunday
some
driver
that I was gifted during the Dabaween event this weekend. Great job, Kirk Reed in Vehicle City.
Yeah, Kirk's here, by the way. So yeah.
Just fantastic event, and what great cannabis. I'm sorry you had such a crappy experience with cannabis over in Europe, Adam.
Oh, it's always
been
shitty here. The weed in Holland is shitty. It's never.
I was
been
going to ask
good.
if that's normal. Yeah.
The genetics is good, but the weed is shitty. Part of it has to do with where it's grown and how it's grown and all that. That's part of the problem. But you know, it works. I mean, you find the 1 or 2 spots. I've got 50 grams of super silver haze being delivered tomorrow. But all that's black market stuff. We don't participate in the regulated system. Have some Moroccan hash and some shoe coming hash. It's all landrace stuff.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. But you know, it's Amsterdam. It's cold and wet and rainy. Picked up my scooter today, so we're out running around on a motor scooter.
Get some video of that, please.
Oh
That'd be
yeah,
really
I will. I'll wear my GoPro and just ride through town.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's hey, I encourage you guys all to come. I would tell you to look at flights. They're cheap. Come now. But yeah, it's a good time.
Nice. And so we might get into some stuff a little bit more with this too, but I wanted to touch on the fact that there's some local ballot initiatives going on today. I know there's some from cannabis, but I've personally voted on E in Detroit, which is lowest level enforcement priority for entheogenic plants and fungi. And I'm hoping that it is successful. There were a few people voting, although it was pretty low key where I showed up today. These elections, well, this is off year, so they don't get the same kind of juice that the other ones do. So you know, it kind of hinges on turnout to a large degree. I definitely think there's support by majority percentage around here. I don't think that's lacking. It'll just depend on how well the show out was.
Yeah, exactly. Who showed up to the polls?
Well, Prop E is for those who don't know, it's a move in the city of Detroit to decriminalize entheogenic substances like cactus and fungi that are hallucinogenic or have other properties of a similar nature. Follows on the heels of the success in Ann Arbor of the same thing too. I have to believe that in Michigan, most progressive cities would probably vote yes if this was put on their ballot to choose. I guess we'll find out tonight how Detroit feels about it. But you're a big part of that, Jim. What's your gut tell you about what the Detroit result might be?
Well, like Jamie said, it comes out to the turnout at the polls. You know, it's basically the same resolution that was passed in Ann Arbor, just making it low priority for law enforcement, as well as decriminalizing the use and therapeutic use of entheogenic plants and fungi. I think it's going to pass in Detroit. I think Detroit's got quite.
I hope it does. I know there's support here.
Yeah, quite a community that supports this and the cannabis support that they have. And I think, you know, the more Detroit residents can vote on propositions like this to help free these plants, whether it be cannabis or like fungi, it's
right.
I think they'll take every advantage to do it. So
yeah, I think so too. I just hope that this was there was enough juice behind getting people to come out. So Jen points out that Lapeer has a option to remove dispensaries on the ballot, which is really fucked up actually, after people have already invested in and worked with the area to get going. And then Perry has an option to opt in for medical cannabis. So that's some of this action that's going on for local stuff.
Total of 5 ballot proposals in Michigan being voted on today, cannabis related. We talked about Lapeer. We talked about Perry. Other than Lapeer, of the 4, there are 2 that would remove prohibitions for cannabis businesses and 2 that would actually authorize cannabis businesses. So when you break it right down to it now, personal freedoms are pretty much established in most communities. We'd like to think anyway. And now we're talking about ballot proposals for businesses, either to take them away or authorize them. And that's basically been how it has been pretty much every 2 years when we vote.
So a little bit later on, we'll talk about what's going on in Genesee Township, which is very unfortunate, or at least what's being attempted. I'd like to believe there could be some opposition that's meaningful. Go ahead, Adam.
I have a question about the proposal E in Detroit.
Yeah.
Somebody can tell me. Is that the first lowest level enforcement action in Detroit, or have there been others?
Wasn't the first cannabis one that Tim did?
Yeah.
Similar? Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. No problem. The
Tim
reason
did
I
too.
mention it,
First, there was the medical, and then there was the adult use.
Yeah.
the reason I mention it is because I think that has a lot to do with moving the ball forward. And if police officers are told that you can no longer, treat this like we used to treat it, then that same officer may use discretion when it comes to other things and other activities and other behaviors, because this is now a new world for law enforcement where they can do what they need to do. And
The Tim we mentioned, just to give credit, Tim Beck, who with the Coalition for a Safer Detroit, Detroit was one of 5 cities in Michigan that had authorized medical marijuana before our statewide ballot proposal in 2008 had done it. Guys like himself, Chuck Ream in Ann Arbor and other places. Heroes, really. Heroes from back then.
Yeah.
Champions for sure.
That's the best poll there is. People showing up to vote one way or another, and those 5 cities demonstrated it. So,
If I can go back to the entheogen
Sure.
movement here tomorrow in Grand Rapids at a place called the Pyramid Scheme, starting at 6 p.m., going till 12, is a Decriminalize Nature Michigan fundraiser for Grand Rapids. They're going to have live music there. Why not? And Fireflower are playing. But that starts tomorrow in Grand Rapids at 6 p.m. I'm going to check it out. I'll be there, and along with Mike Williams and Julie Barron and all the people from Decriminalize Nature.
and the pyramid scheme is owned by somebody who has been very heavily involved, very socially conscious, definitely helped out the cannabis movement, and many other really great acts of helping people in one way or another. Tammy Vandenberg. So that's fitting.
Yeah.
Now, I would like to say that is a great name for a.
It is, especially for over there.
Because it makes me think twice about doing business with them. And then once I realize who I'm talking about, I'm like, oh, of course I want to do business with those schemers. But yeah, great name. Great name.
West Michigan and Grand Rapids is notorious for the Amway franchise and several similar type things, which oftentimes are referred to in that fashion as a pyramid type scheme. So
that's why that's
the
just
Dutch
great.
Mafia.
Yeah.
Tammy Vandenberg, as Jamie mentioned, was on the board of directors of MI Legalize. Another great hero from Grand Rapids is history, Michael Tuffelmeier, who
we got to see the other night
did
too.
Decriminalize GR, where they decriminalized cannabis in Grand Rapids prior to our legalization proposal in 2018. And most other things were the result of group efforts, but Michael really just took that by the horns and ran with it.
That was the only one that didn't have like a Safer Mish connection.
That's right, which was fantastic. But it shows how important the Safer Michigan connection is. But Michael was also just at the grand opening of the Redemption Cannabis and Covert Law Firm new offices. And Michael Tuffelmeier started in the real estate business, and good luck to him. It's an excellent guy. I'm sure anything he does will be done very well.
I agree.
And congratulations to Newton Ellis Basor, the brand new baby of Jenna and Ryan Basor.
Man, Ryan had to miss the Michigan State game.
Yeah, he did. Great game.
But
good reason.
Yeah.
It's okay. He
Right,
can
like
catch that
he was going
video.
to be able to miss
so
that.
now we know why Adam is in Amsterdam. The Dutch oven.
Oh man.
Not about cooking, folks. Oh, I love the Michigan State Spartan shirt. Thank you. For those who aren't aware, Michigan State beat University of Michigan in our big in-state rivalry in football just this last weekend. Jim and I, notorious green and white Michigan State Spartans fans, and Jamie Lowell, not so much a Spartans fan. Kind of the other guys.
I'm a Michigan fan, but I'm also a Big Ten fan. And when it doesn't affect Michigan, I like root for Michigan State too. I'm not an evil, vengeful fan. I watch Michigan or Michigan State to lose, no matter what.
What a great game, though. If you one for history, the outcome was not determined until the final minutes of the fourth quarter. A real tug of war between two teams that really don't care for each other because of the in-state rivalry, and was just fantastic television.
It was a classic game.
It was
for sure.
It was. Yep. So Luxury Loud, yes, good stuff. Jim actually attended the game. I remember seeing some photos of Jim and Ida Lee at the game, right?
Yeah, we had a good time. We were sitting right there screaming the whole time. There were
tailgating.
Some obnoxious fans from Michigan. Didn't say anything to them the entire game. By the end, they were a lot quieter. So it turned out.
Right.
A little smug, there's different years and different results.
That's true. Yep. You have to rely on past glory. That's okay, Jamie. We have recent glory.
I'm still happy with the season so far, man. I mean,
all I know is your doctor molested more people than our doctor, right, Jamie? So you guys can be proud all you want.
The Olympics, so I think.
And you ain't got no hash bash either.
Yep. Well, Robin, thanks for you and Bob watching. Right? Yep, at Tom Gillies earlier. Thanks, Tom. You might have to read my lips because Tom doesn't do so good with words. What a good crowd we have making comments here today. Thank you.
Yeah, except for that Jay Schlegel guy, wherever he's coming from.
No. Jay was born and raised in Ohio. I deal with it regularly. My grandmother was from Cincinnati, and and growing up as a kid, we had to deal with the Ohio State thing. But them people are different. I mean, I get it. It's okay.
Look, my first college I went to was in Columbus, Ohio. I moved away at 17 to go to college. And they didn't have any on-campus housing, so they put us up around the city. And I was on the Ohio State campus living, and they sent letters to us that said, hey, during this particular weekend, remove the license plates from your cars that say Michigan. Otherwise, you're likely to get vandalized if the Wolverines beat Ohio State. So the rivalry is real.
I haven't had to worry about that for a while.
I saw a buddy of mine had a window broken leaving an Ohio State game back in the late 80s, and that is no joke. An interesting Ohio State campus fact is that Bo Schembechler owned the Domino's Pizza on the Ohio State campus.
Adam, having a hard time hearing you, sir.
It's just after 420.
Sorry. Interesting thing about campus life at Ohio State is that Bo Schembechler owned the Domino's Pizza franchise on the Ohio State campus. It was
he got a
on
good
High Street, actually. That's on the busiest traverse.
It was given to him by Tom Monahan.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. Yeah.
And that was
cool. So yeah, and I probably should have gotten to this, but reluctantly here, and Dan Sparrow brings it up.
Oh, yeah.
Grady Emmons passed away.
I'd like to read Dan's note because we have some audio-only listeners on Alexa, Spotify, and Amazon Radio. Dan reminds us, he says, I'd like to pay respect to a good friend, colleague, and all-around great guy, Grady Emmons of Marijuana Security Operations, passed away this last weekend. MSO is a secure transport company that operates here in Michigan. It's required by law to transport marijuana from cultivator to retailer, cultivator to processor, processor to retailer. He was a wonderful individual who did a lot. He will be missed. I already miss him, to be honest with you. So, and Jamie and I had meetings with legislators and to arrange for things today, and we're unable to attend the visitation and the funeral. I certainly hope there were some industry representatives there because he touched a lot of lives. So,
man, he worked so hard to get his business up and running and get the license, and it's just such a hassle because he got in kind of early. Everything changed every other day, and and he finally got it going. Man, it's just additionally sad. But go ahead, Adam.
No, you just killed what I was going to say. So the reality is that my question is, after what you just said, is there any chance of getting rid of that license? Is there any chance of convincing these
right now? I don't think
that's not needed.
But I agree with you. on that, but I don't think that there's a reasonable chance right now or anytime soon that we phase that one out.
I mean, and do these same legislators realize that the caregivers are going to drive their product from their grow to the processor based on the legislation that's been proposed?
So Adam points out a contradiction where new legislation that's been introduced would require regular old people in regular old cars to drive cannabis all the way right to places where they can sell it, as opposed to the regulated industry, which has to have big old trucks with 2 drivers to drive that cannabis anywhere it goes in the state. And it does seem to be a contradiction. I agree with Jamie, though, that since the secure transport license type has been in existence since 2016, it seems almost impossible to separate it from the industry at this point. And if you did, how would you possibly compensate those people who have already invested in the security operations themselves? You can't adequately, compensate them for loss of their entire business and everything they could. It does, however, it's a unique license type for Michigan that really does, in our estimation, put some additional cost on the retail end of cannabis.
Right. Hey, so we are going to hear from, I think, Josey and Crystal from Sons and Daughters at some point today. I thought they might be coming by already. Later on, we are going to hear from Amy Carter and maybe Latricia also. And they've been in Lansing all day. We do have the lobby day coming up tomorrow. The bills were not heard on the floor today, thankfully. We think that there's, they probably whip the vote count and realize they don't have it at the moment. So we talk about that then, but we did want to talk about the Genesee Township situation. This is another way that there's an attack on caregivers and caregiver activity through local measures. We've had Jeremy on just recently talking about how cool and the historic value and the continued help for many people that his efforts and club have provided. And we've brought up Vehicle City many times about what we like about going on there and the events we've been able to do. And those things are being threatened by local ordinance, by people leaning on the locals. And I guess Jeremy's not here at the moment, so I'll jump back on. But go ahead, Adam.
Oh, I just, in response to that, my simple concept would be that any of these communities that are enacting any of these ordinances, first of all of these communities that are enacting any of these ordinances are small communities. I would recommend, and I highly recommend, recall petitions going after the people that are creating these ordinances on the local level, because it wouldn't take that much to recall some of these people, or at least put the scare into them that you've gone against the 63 or 65% of your community and we're paying attention. But,
yeah, that stuff's been going on, and there are challenges. I mean, there's some stuff at the rooter that's not settled law, but people, meaning local decision makers, are still treating it as if it is. And, there's some room to challenge stuff. This gets into a little bit different of a thing. So, Jeremy, we're going to bring you on here. How you doing, man?
I can't hear you guys. I'm sorry.
That's not important. We just
want to see your pretty face.
Yeah,
We're
just
not
look at
really
you and listen to you
interested in hearing what
speak.
you have to say.
Is that scalp? Is that fleece? What is that? Okay.
I feel blind in a weird way.
Oh, no. So obviously those people who follow Jazz Cabbage Cafe will be familiar with the interview that we did with Jeremy, as Jamie mentioned the other day.
Looks like Rick.
All right, I'll just speak. If you guys hear me, give me a thumbs up.
Yeah, I can hear you, man.
Okay, all right, groovy.
Get on Genesee Township and all
you
the
guys know
bullshit.
what's up. We've got the township, Genesee Township. Got 2 different ordinances that they proposed. And I don't know if you guys have seen the language at all, but it's 31 pages between the 2 of them. So pretty extensive stuff. I got the opportunity to meet with the supervisor on Monday, along with Chelsea I call her Johnson. I'm sure that's the wrong last name. I apologize, but Chelsea set it up, and man, she knocked it out of the park. But we had a good meeting. Met with the supervisor along with the one of the, I don't know if he's a treasurer, but his name's Wayne Bates. He's on the council there, and we went through all of our concerns in the ordinance. It was amazing at how much they didn't know about what they were proposing. We spent a lot of time talking about what was in the ordinance, what it implied, and they were just about deferring every question, to the attorney who wasn't there, but I am going to meet with tomorrow. So they were real prompt in setting up the next appointment. So I'm going in there tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. to talk with them again, along with their attorney. And basically, I'm just going to voice the same concerns I brought up in the prior meeting, which is there's a lot. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. They've got definitions of a home care center and a patient care center. Essentially, a home care center is one caregiver by themselves in their home. And that becomes defined as a home care center under the ordinance. It requires a home occupation permit, which of course would be invasive and would publish your information, in the paper to all your neighbors and everything else. It require permits and so on and so forth. Inspections at any time by anybody that they deem that they want them to do inspections. And then the other part of the definition is called a patient care center, which is defined as when you have two caregivers working together outside of their residence. So first of all, by the home care center, they're implying that you can't have more than one caregiver working at a home, which is obviously not a good thing for people who work together or, partners, whatever it may be. Obviously, a lot of work involved, and usually there's more than one caregiver working at a particular site. Doesn't necessarily mean that there's 144 plants, but that wasn't even really the concern. The main concerns of these guys, of the council, of the town, if you will, is the smell. And that's what they repeated to me over and over again. That's what was in their notes. We did a FOIA request and got their planning commission notes, their past agendas and meeting minutes and so forth. And we still haven't gotten some answers in regards to some of our questions in the FOIA request, but getting back to the reasoning behind for the ordinance is they said was smell. They particularly don't care for it. They said they've had a number of complaints. They showed us some letters. There were some meeting notes as to different residents' complaints involving smell. The other concern they had were high traffic areas in residents' homes. So I don't know if we got a couple bad apples around, but they said they had, traffic in and out of their driveway all day long. And if that's related to caregiving or not, who knows? I mean, it's pure speculation at this point. But again, the main concern were smell. And so one of the conversations I had in this was talking about people's rights in regards to recreational cannabis. And, it's legal now. There's not a lot you can do about smell. I mean, if the neighbor chooses to fire one up on his front porch and it blows in your yard, it's tough shit. And they said, well, we're not talking about that. We're talking about growing. And I said, well, it's the same thing. In Michigan, you can grow outside as long as I keep you from being able to see it. And they were confused on that, actually. Wanted to argue with me a bit and imply that you can't grow outside. So there's some education that needs to occur as well. So I wasn't going to argue at the current meeting that I was at, but, I did bring it up. And of course, when I go back tomorrow, I'll have that law right in front of them so I can show them where it says what the requirements are and what you can and can't do when it comes to recreational. And I also brought up the fact that a lot of the concerns that are being voiced have happened in the last, say, 24 months. And caregiving's gone down in the last 24 months. Rec has gone up. So most of these complaints are probably related to recreational growing, consumption, whatever. And in this ordinance, these ordinances that they're proposing, they're not going to do anything to curb that. So it's counterproductive. It's wasting time. It's wasting resources of the city and so forth. And, as I told them, I said, I don't think that caregivers are opposed to reasonable regulations. I mean, nobody wants to see their house burned down, and, nobody wants to see anybody abuse the program either. So, but these regulations that they're proposing, they're way out of line. They went so far as to say that you couldn't even socialize with your patient at your home care center. Now, mind you, the home care center is your home. So they're saying you can't socialize with your patient at your home. Of course, they said you couldn't medicate with them there. So, and they don't take into account obvious things like a caregiver could be a patient. So what are you going to do then? They didn't take into account the fact that, you know, obviously you could go ahead and zone caregivers and make them grow a certain way, or tell them not to grow a certain way, but you can't do that with a recreational grower. And so you're putting undue burdens on one class of citizens, treating medical people like they're second class. I mean, it's way out of line. And I think part of it was a misunderstanding on their part of what people's rights are under rec. So we're going to have a conversation about that tomorrow. Obviously, we talked about the patient care center concept that they came up with, and this was really out of line. They even involved lockers, which I'm sure most of you guys understand. Lockers were ruled out a while ago, but they wanted us to essentially, you know, be zoned in an industrial area, get permits, it's special use permit, and this is for mainly the ordinance is geared in this section towards cultivation, which I thought was odd. But trying to group, you know, when caregivers want to group together, they wanted to, I guess, move to this industrial area and create a new place and grow there, and then their patients can come there and pick up their weed from their locker. It was their idea. I don't know where they got this from, but, you know, I pointed out to them that that's been already shot down a while ago. So
can you hear us?
There was a lot of other things involving their patient care center concept that were way out of line, and we did topically go over those. But I thought it was interesting when we first sat down in the meeting. The first thing he said to us, in fact, both of them did, the supervisor and the was, "We're not here to put anybody out of business." Specifically, me and Vehicle City, he was referring to. And I said, "Okay, well, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate that." And he said, "No, that's not our intent whatsoever." And I thought, okay, well, that, you know, so that's great. I like that. And but it says me, you know, well, that wasn't our intention. And so we talked a little bit more and got to it. And I said, well, your ordinance is me, you know, it's specifically right in here, not a retail location, not in a strip mall, not, you know, I'm like, that's me, you know, like, so I said, well, no, this isn't involving you. I said, okay, well, and then we got talking about fees, because in their notes, which we FOIA'd from their planning commission, they had in there talking about a $5,000 fee for these patient care centers annually. And they also they put a specific note in there that, you know, caregivers are not allowed to be getting any type of compensation other than related costs. And there's notes from themselves talking about the caregiver pay a $5,000 fee if they're not making any money. And the attorney's response was, well, that's probably why they'll go to a recreational market. So we were able to point out right from their own notes how this monetarily is not even a feasible concept, along with a whole lot of other reasons why it's not feasible. But just the, you know, the oxymoronic attitude, the apathetic viewpoint, you know, towards people's businesses, towards people's medicinal needs, it's really quite evident, at least from their attorney, which, you know, he's not a part of their board, but, you know, he is a service they're utilizing, and he's actually from out of the area. He's the Mount Morris Township attorney. And they told us a couple of attorneys working on it and one that wasn't. But at any rate, it's a real piece of work, this ordinances, I should say. But getting back to the fee, I said, well, how is someone supposed to pay this fee if they're not able to make any money? And the question was, well, come on, your business can afford a $5,000 fee? And I said, well, why would I pay a $5,000 fee if I'm not affected by the ordinance? And so that, you know, that kind of put and they hemmed and hawed, and we'll see what they do. I mean, I also pointed out the fact that they had a fee listed for home care centers as well, but they didn't bother to decide how much ordinance. You know, so I guess they're working on that. But that's kind of it in a nutshell. We're going back there tomorrow morning, and like I said, they did express willingness to table this if they need to do some rewriting. But they also expressed a determination that they want to regulate this. And like I said, I really don't think they understand the rights of a recreational user and how that can kind of conflict with the caregiver user or, you know, grower. I asked the question, how do you tell the difference between a recreational plant and a medicinal plant. He said, well, that's what the
the
tagging
joys of
system's
live
for.
radio.
I said, well, caregivers don't have tags, and so we talked about that too. So a lot of education that had to go on, and it needs to continue to go on. And it's the same thing that we see at the state level. So no surprise really there. But
And Lobby Day is definitely on Thursday. Can you hear us now, Jeremy?
no, just barely. So you're gonna look at my ear while I'm listening.
All right, hey man. So this is something that could be pushed to referendum. It's a township, so you can't initiate anything. But if they go to change policy or go to make new local ordinance, it can be pushed to a vote. And depending on when the next scheduled election is, which might be next year, November, it could be staved off in that way if you can't come to some other type of formal compromise. If you had that discussion?
Yeah, actually, we met with our attorneys last week, and so we talked about quite a few different options that we have, whether it be ballot initiative or going to well, I won't discuss everything, but we had a lot of different options. And right now, we're trying to exercise diplomacy and trying to work with them the best that we possibly can. As long as they continue to at least talk to us, we're going to at least talk to them. But yeah, we have that option of doing that as well. So.
Well, the other thing I don't like about that is that what they're trying to do really, I mean, as far as odor goes, whatever is achievable under existing ordinance, probably codes. Just if there's an issue, you let the people know about it. If it continues, then,
But like Jeremy said, the problem is that these people are ill-informed and misinformed. And this is what happens when you allow outsiders to come into your community and make rules. This is the Michigan Municipal League and the Township Association writing a 31 or 33 page, whatever it is, document. This isn't stuff that those people came up with. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So first they need to step back and educate themselves on the system and what's going on. And at which point, if they want to regulate it on the township level, maybe they'll understand what's going on. But this is what happens when outsiders come into your community and make change. And let them know, Jeremy, please, that if they're not willing to work with you, you can bring outsiders into the community to make change. And they won't like the change that comes because it's not what they're talking about.
So Mike Whitty brings up, and he said before, will caregiver troubles lead to attempts locally by residential home grows, putting it all in cannabis grow zones to ultimately ban? I guess I can't decipher that immediately or process it, but as far as going after all activity that's in the home, eventually, yes, I think that's on the plan for these big money interests eventually.
Again, I would point out to these people, I don't know where they've been, but 15 years ago, and for the 100 years before that, we were growing illegally in our homes. Why do they think that some local fucking ordinance is going to change that?
It's not. And, obviously that's the ignorance that Jeremy referred to. I believe that they just don't understand a lot of the stuff Jeremy was saying we're hearing on the state level, because we're now talking to engaging with a lot of people on the state because of these stupid bills.
Again, this is what happens when you allow outsiders to come in and tell you what to do. This isn't like some legislator found out that his kid was involved in something and he's now come to the floor with some crazy bill. We've seen that in the past. This is worse. This is people that have had an agenda since 2008, and they've been pushing their agenda, and they finally got some traction post DeRuiter, and it's just so ill-informed, and you guys know this because you've spoken to these people, that if you out them for being as stupid as they are, I think that may be one of our that may work in our
I'd agree with what Mr. Hashbash is saying 100%. They had a discussion about the smells, and then they just said, hey, attorney, do it, and ran with it. You know what I mean? So wherever he's getting the language from, he didn't just come up with that. And it's not like it's echoing across Genesee County like we're seeing in all these townships. Same body of language. it's certainly coming from the same thing. It's MTA, MML, and our supervisor here in my township told me they went to a continuing education class, and this is what they rolled out.
Yeah.
And here's how you stop it.
And I might mention to my lawyer, Jeremy, if I were you, that if these people learn this at a continuing education event, maybe there's something that the local businesses, local caregivers could come after them for, because they certainly didn't have them in mind when they went and were re-educated by this continuing ed program. I mean, it certainly didn't educate them for the whole truth.
And there's a lot of misinformation, and some of that misinformation is consistent the more we learn about these discussions between the policy discussions, and even on a local and a state level.
Is that what lobby days? I saw one of our somebody commented, Mikey, about lobby days on Thursday.
Lobby day is Thursday.
It's definitely Thursday. I think I may have said tomorrow, and that was my
that's
fault.
okay. Just wanted to correct
Not
that.
correct.
Also, like, that's the kind of event that can help us, mobilize and get people together to battle all these fights we have.
Yeah.
So let me just reset the conversation real quick. For those people who aren't familiar with what's going on in Michigan, for over a decade, the law that we had, the medical marijuana law, said that local communities really couldn't regulate caregivers who were operating under the guise of the law, and that really wasn't a whole lot of problems with that. A recent court decision called DeRuiter says that local communities can regulate caregiving activity. However, it doesn't define what type of regulations can be done and what's appropriate. Now, people have taken that one particular ruling and they've run with it. In other words, they started out taking some restrictions, then they took more restrictions, then they took more restrictions, and now we have an 80, some odd ridiculous page ordinance in Genesee Township. The reason that we need to educate people is because they've never had to consider these issues before, because for 10 plus years, they were not allowed to do the regulations now. And there will be a situation where one of these communities gets sued by a caregiver who has some unreasonable expectations put on him by his local community. And that will be the mechanism by which we define where they're allowed to regulate and where they're not allowed to regulate. But for right now, until that particular court case gets decided, people like Jeremy get railroaded by a local community who feels like they have complete control, when we know, Jamie Lowell, it was only partial control that was given to them by the court decision.
The difference, Rick, is they do have complete control via the ordinance law, and that's the problem. Not specific to weed, but the fact that they can pass local ordinance and create local law is something that these city council members, commissioners, and whatnot hold dearly. And it's only because the municipal league and those guys have educated them on what the possibilities are that have gotten us here today.
Remember, the city of Detroit, though, they don't have complete control. There are some guidelines they can't violate.
Correct. No, the cities.
They can't be more restrictive than state law, and that's what they've tried to do a lot under the DeRuiter attempt. But that's what the municipal league does. They try to push the envelope and see how much control they can get out of something. That's not too uncommon. Same thing with the Townships Association.
And again, they're doing it on behalf of their local communities. And local control is as powerful as it gets in this country. It's all about local control.
Until the state takes it from you, or until the feds take it from the states, right? So,
well, I mean, that's coming.
So Jeremy, you've got a meeting that is tomorrow. Is that a public meeting where votes could be made, or is that a meeting that's being had because there's a lot of interest from the public, people such as yourself, and they're allowing for some kind of input?
Well, at this time, I really don't know what the format is going to be. With the talk of possibly deferring, I would say it's exactly how it's going to go down. I've had a lot of people talking to me, and so forth. I have no idea what the format will be. And, it's a real small town, so you never know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? We're going to show up. Hopefully we can get as many people as we possibly can so that we can show that we are the majority. and then at the same time, show them that we're just regular people, you know, and hopefully they'll listen to us. I think when they see the amount of people that we have support from, the amount of people that are coming out of the community and saying, hey, we support these caregivers, hopefully they can see that you know, they can stand firm and know that they have the support of the community to do the right thing.
Right. And making sure that everyone knows you're open to dialogue. You're open to talking about the problems that they want to set up. You're open to having a discussion about things, but they can't just proceed forward with a gigantic ordinance that's poorly understood and seems rather manipulated. You said that the Mount Morris Township attorney is representing them. Possibly he's the person that drafted it. Mount Morris Township is just a few blocks north of me here. They're full of cannabis businesses, and they favor a cannabis regulated business style as opposed to caregivers. Does it seem like this is a business centric position that they're taking and an anti-caregiver one?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it seems that way. I don't know if that's necessarily the case because what I've been told is that the same ordinance is already passed in Mount Morris. That's what the supervisor told me. So that would be in addition to the fact that they opted in and so forth. And yeah, I mean, in that regard, you're absolutely right. It would be more of a business approach and trying to get rid of the caregivers at the same time. And in Mount Morris, maybe that's an option that works better. I don't think it does, but I think they were able to slip it through without a whole lot of people really realizing what was going on. And that's what seems to be happening across Michigan.
Rick, is that where we went to a meeting with Nick a couple of years ago? I had spoken a few times with the attorney there about this was about commercial licensing, about bringing in the dispensaries or whatever for the
Mount Morris Township currently has Lighten Up Provisioning Center, Crap Mint, also Jazz Cannabis. All three of those are right off of Pearson Road up here. Plus, there's a lot.
Is there High Level Health too? Is it
probably in Mount Morris Township? Yes, sir. I believe there is. It's a little more further north, but yeah, there's just a bunch of them. So oftentimes we see the
quite a few.
Monetary benefit business brings oftentimes outweighs the cries of the people. Folks love cash. They like to get reelected and they need money to do that. They need to pave roads and they like money to do that. But in reality, that government's just the extension of you and I. And if you and I are not happy, government should change. Jeremy, don't you feel that way?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's getting discouraging that we have to kind of run and chase these guys constantly just to do the right thing. And especially when it's, they're pursuing business interests, obviously. And in this scenario here, you can easily see they wanted to kill two birds with one stone. All right, we're going to regulate caregiving, and we're going to some money on it too.
Yeah.
And not really a whole lot of regard for anything else.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no ordinance authorizing regulated cannabis businesses, either adult use or medical, in Genesee Township currently, right?
Right. No, they've done their best to opt out of everything.
Yeah. So it seems weird that the Mount Morris Township guy would put forth something like this in a city where it doesn't look like businesses are going to benefit. I guess if you're just anti-caregiving, you're anti-caregiving everywhere, not just in the places where it benefits business. That's just bad.
Right.
Well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rick.
No, please. I was just going to summarize. Go ahead.
The next actually scheduled meeting where this gets brought up in a township board setting where they might be considering a vote or a reading is Tuesday, November 9th, 1 week from today. Is that right?
That is a scheduled council meeting for Genesee Township. Yes, I'm not sure.
That's right, November 9th.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So they are, at least sounds like these other meetings are at least being extended for informational purposes or for at least having some input and, to consider some changes. So I hope that is successful.
I can say that it was community involvement that helped defuse to a certain degree the Flushing Township ordinance. Jen Bronson, who's on our comments here, Buddy Dalton, Eric Gunnell, some of the other people who came and gave testimony and really worked with that community in order to get them to pare down some of the more heinous things. Trish, I believe, Trish Mason, Amy Carter. Give credit to all those folks. So it's possible that sometimes municipal leaders get kind of hoodwinked by a fast-talking attorney who drops an ordinance in their lap that they don't really understand, and then they just push it because they're told this is the right thing to do. And then when citizens expose some of the unintended consequences, cities sometimes listen. And it sounds, Jeremy, like you've opened up that dialogue, right?
You nailed it, Rick. That's pretty much where we're at.
Yeah, that's so important. I think oftentimes we get hung up on the hate, right? We get hung up on government sucks, or this particular person needs to be lampooned because he's the leader of something that's going against what we want. When in reality, it's lack of information and lack of a confidant, right? Now that they have cannabis issues, they know they can call Jeremy, and that'll help later on when we talk about THC and driving limits, or when we talk about energy monitoring of the usage of energy in the homes in order to determine illegal activity. There's just a million different things that cities have to consider regarding cannabis, and having somebody they can call and talk to and trust. That's really important, don't you think?
I do. It's just hopefully that they utilize it, and that has become an issue. I can tell you, our township here, the one I live in, other townships, oftentimes I find myself chasing these people down, and after I put myself out there as a available resource, and then finding out that they're doing something, and I have this feeling like, well, hey, why didn't you call? And that seems to be the norm, honestly. So I don't know that. I think sometimes townships kind of think, well, they'd like to just do what they want, and almost like a kid, where I'll just do it and ask for forgiveness later. And that's getting to be too costly for townships to continue doing that sort of attitude. We're seeing, not just in this township, but in quite a few others, lawsuits continue to pile up because procedures and things weren't delivered on. It comes back to haunt you. So it would definitely behoove them to reach out into the community more than they do. And actually, we had a conversation with the supervisor, and I talked to him specifically about the fact that townships do such a poor job of disseminating information to the community, and that really is a responsibility that they have. And it's not my problem that technology in the day and age we live in doesn't go by an old newspaper. It's just not a relevant source of information anymore. And if they want people to know what's going on, if they want people to get involved and engage, then they have to do their part to let people know what's going on. Whether that be maintaining some sort of social media or just keeping their stinking website up to date would be nice. But this township that I'm in is no exception.
People versus the city of Wyoming versus John Turbeek is a case where a city in Western Michigan tried to use federal law to justify passing an ordinance that disallowed people for utilizing their medical cultivation rights in their community. They spent millions of dollars trying to defend a bad program, and in the end, John Turbeek, a wonderful guy who's an attorney as well as a caregiver, he won. He prevailed, and the city of Wyoming lost. And I don't know whether they had to pay him his legal fees or not. But the point being, a community like Genesee Township doesn't have millions to spend taking their case all the way through the appellate system and potentially even up to the Michigan Supreme Court. They really should be more cautious about the things that they choose to stomp on in their community. Right, Jeremy? That's Jeremy
I would
saying,
agree.
Rick, yeah. Josey would have said it if she was online, but
And so, Jeremy, please stick around if you can, or if you'd like to, for more of the discussion. We're going to get into the bills and some other stuff, but I do want to get to Josey here for a minute. But regardless, are you calling, and are others calling for support for people to show up on the 9th to be a part of the meeting and to
We want
help them?
as many people as we can show up for support. Call, honestly, we really want to have people that are living in the township. That's where the impact's at. So if you know someone in Genesee Township, if you yourself are there, your phone call is vital. So we appreciate that.
Yeah, and the people who normally utilize the township.
So thank you for having me on the show, Jamie. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. The opportunity to share, it means a lot.
you bet.
Right on. Thank you, Jeremy. Josey Scoggin joins us.
Looks like she needs some vitamin C. Getting a little sicky there, kid?
Yeah, I've my kid is in kindergarten now, so I guess this is just my life for the next 12 years or so. So I'm so excited to be here. I love Vehicle City. It's everyone's favorite venue, right? I'm here to talk about my holiday drive.
Sons and Daughters and Glenn, of course. Josey is the main force behind those organizations with some other people, and every year they help out families around the holiday, and you're gearing up for that.
Yeah, so we started it 6 years ago with Jamie Fricky and the Thin Green Line. The idea was all of our friends. I don't know if you remember 2010 when everybody had their cards and we all thought it was we could smoke weed in front of the cops and shit. And we were we're got a license to smoke marijuana. And I was one of the only minor patients. And I was 14 and I didn't have, my issues were chronic pain, right? So I thought I was the shit. So my dad spent 20 of my 27 years in prison for cocaine use. Drug users here in Michigan have really harsh sentences regardless. And during the time of the holiday season, coming out of or entering an incarceration, your finances are being locked or whatever it is, Jamie had this idea to find all of our friends, which was a lot, right? Everybody was being raided and we were wait a minute, but I have a license to do this. And they were nah, you don't. But nobody knew what was going on, right? Nobody was an attorney. So we didn't know that they were going to bring guns in and shoot your dog and take your kids to, foster care over something that was legally grown that you had a license to do. And so we started with people who were incarcerated or coming out of incarceration. The idea was, let's get not an adoptive family thing, but better, right? Let's get everything on this person's list and then things that make their life easier. We include people with disability, people emerging from things like incarceration or homelessness, really a chance to get all new winter gear, everything that your kids need on their wish list. It's something that was weird about last year. We do this every year, but last year every single kid needed a headphones and a computer so that they could do their stuff online. Everybody was in the middle of the pandemic. So we're looking for anybody that is needs a little bit of help this holiday season to sign up at sonsanddaughtersunited.org/holiday. If you have a friend or a neighbor who fits these categories, somebody who is disabled, chronically ill, reemerging from incarceration or homelessness, we want to take on the holiday season. We're providing this year all over the state of Michigan, thanks to the Redemption Foundation. So we're really excited about that partnership.
Hey, Josey, sonsanddaughtersunited.org and
/holiday.
Holiday.
Yeah, you can put it on the bottom. I also, just real quick, it is holiday season, so if you could make Sons and Daughters United your Amazon Smile charity, or choose us for Giving Tuesday, which is November 30th, we get 100% of the donations through that way, and it's a good way to give when you're already buying stuff or stuff like that. Otherwise, please come and sign up, sign your friends up. If you have a dispensary and you do this already, you adopt a family and you know who you want to adopt, let's run it through Sons and Daughters United so that we can get you a tax deduction and also ease a little bit of the work on you. Jamie is helping with BOCO. He did this last year and it was super successful. And so we're excited to team up with them again. And also Greenstem from Niles sponsored a family down here, and our friends at Herbology gave $5,000 for the program. So we're really excited.
those guys from House of Dank sound like they might be interested from the show last night.
I'm so
helping out.
excited. I think they're pretty cool. You know, I know that they're selling in CMA products, and that's
So they continue to buy the products from the places
I
we
mean,
don't
I don't
like because they
think
claim
that-
they need it for inventory. And meanwhile, they do help out a lot of other things. So I guess, people have their lines there, so it is a weird discussion. It got into a circular
always
pattern after a
good
little
for
while.
cannabis companies to do good, right? So there is actually people in the world that think that dispensaries and cannabis facilities are not good for their community. So having examples of anybody, even if it's a shit company, doing good things is awesome. But there's a lot of better companies that do just as great things, right? So I think that it's important to, I guess, highlight everybody that's donating, at least in the mainstream media, and everybody that's doing, like, do you guys remember when Kevin Spittler used to do that MS Jalen thing, where it was like he was the only dispensary, it was like really early on, that they would let do it, and he was denied like the first time, and he wrote this really good letter, and he raised like more money than anybody else. And it was this idea that we are, of course, an industry, but also, especially with the caregiver market at that time, we were absolutely a community, and that was pretty cool.
Well, he was given a special award by Muscular Dystrophy Association for that, and I remember
Right.
he had a record amount of donations for food at Loaves and Fishes in Kalamazoo too.
I think you brought a can and you got a free joint. It was like the best thing to hit Kalamazoo. If you go on Reddit right now, there's probably like only in Kalamazoo shit with the flyer still hooked up there. But yeah, Kevin did some really cool stuff at the Med Joint. It was short-lived, but it was pretty cool. And then he went and did revolutionize how hemp was, I think, way before people were really talking about hemp, how hemp was perceived in Ohio and in the Midwest, and that was awesome. But all throughout it, the way that he did it was through community outreach.
He opened a store in Toledo
So-
a long time ago based on hemp products called the Hemp Center, right? THC.
Right.
Yeah.
It's still
The
there.
Toledo Hemp Center is called Toledo Hemp
Okay,
Center.
the Toledo
THC.
Hemp
It was voted the best holistic shop in Toledo.
I believe
We had
branched
him on
out
here
to
a couple months
Florida
ago.
and also like West Virginia, another state, Florida and maybe Tennessee, something like that.
They did
So-
have a Tennessee one, but I think that closed over COVID.
Okay.
But we're really excited to do this, and we're excited to be able to offer it all over. If you have a friend or a family member who needs some help this holiday season, sign them up. If anyone has like a regular patient, that's usually where we find people that really need it most, or people who are going to the dispensaries already, the regular patients, and they're like, Josey, I know exactly who I want to help this holiday season. We do a lot of cool stuff at Sons and Daughters United, but none of it is nearly as fun as our holiday drive. So, yeah, thank you. I'm glad that
So
it's not.
I would jump in here real quick. As a disclaimer, I do have to mention that when I was released from prison in October of 2013, I was approached by the Thin Green Line, and they offered to supply my children with some holiday gifts. And I'll be totally honest, I don't need anything. I know I had just gotten out of prison, but I'm not one of need. And I felt that at the time, based on what they were doing, that I had to take it and fulfill their dream of helping people like myself who had just gotten out of prison. I think it's a great idea to support people who may or may not need help, just to let them know that we're out there and we're thinking of them. So, I would encourage everyone to throw a few bucks that way. if you can.
Thank
But
you.
it was a real nice touch. I mean, you know, I had just gotten out of prison. I was pretty fat in prison. I had a lot of money. Matter of fact, I had so much money in prison, I had to waste money or they were going to charge me to stay. And that money was all donated by people in our community. So, you know, getting out of prison, I actually left with money. They sent me home with $600. So it was real touching to have somebody in my own community who knew me reach out and say, hey, we want to help your kids out. So I just want to say thank you. It means a lot to me that, you know, somebody reached out and, you know, I wasn't one of these guys like Michael Thompson who spent, you know, decades in prison and had nothing to come out to. Hell, I smoked a joint in the prison parking lot. I mean, I was, you know, I was all right, but it was just a real nice touch, and I appreciate it. So I just feel whenever Josey says this and I'm on a show with her, I always like to make that comment. So.
Thank you, Adam. That's, you know, it was Jamie Fricky's dream, like you're saying, from the beginning, like to find specifically marijuana, people that were in jail for marijuana, and there were so many at that time, you know, and there was no way, I think, that we would have let you get away without a basket anyways, so I'm glad that you took it carefully.
I realize that.
But I think that every year I come on the show and Adam does this, like, beautiful speech about this, and I, like, get off of it, and I, like, call my mom, and I'm like, did you see what Adam said? And I'm so excited to be a part of it. But something cool that we've been doing at Sons and Daughters United is evolving, right? And doing more than just marijuana stuff. And I think that I just want to make it, we also have our prison support program, which provides stationery, travel expenses, communication. And I think that is something that's especially difficult now during COVID. And I just want to remind anybody that's watching who has a family member, a loved one that's incarcerated, which is about 1.3 million people here. So that you could get free support to stay connected to your loved ones all throughout the holiday season. And everybody that signs up that has a incarcerated loved one is automatically enrolled in our Family Connection Grant, which gives them up to $250 a month in travel or stationery or communications expenses. And a lot of places aren't doing travel. I don't think we've had anybody that's been actually open since COVID. We are serving the whole state. So anywhere that you're at, I have a very good hub in Genesee County. Jen, if you know anybody out there, the main way that it works, right, is the idea that people, our friends, the people we partner with, they wrap the gifts and deliver them. And so it's all confidential. But it's a really good way to get involved. And I think that it's nothing new, right? Well, every dispensary I know does something like this in the holiday season. So if you're doing this in your dispensary, let me get you a tax deduction for it. And also, let's work together and see if we can't provide more. And that's always the goal, right? I think that the holidays are so difficult for people in general, but especially difficult for our friends that are incarcerated. And I think that it's a true struggle, and regardless of coming out to a family or to money, the trauma that you experience and your family experiences during incarceration, it is terrible, and it's hard, especially hard during the holiday season.
You're doing great work.
I'm excited. Thank you guys so much. And, you know, Jamie's working hard on it. He's going to bring Boko in. And, you know, Boko's everywhere. They're in Tawas and Kalkushka. Is that what it's called? Wait.
That's what we call it.
Kalkaska and Kalkushka is great strain from Real Leaf Solutions, and also the name of the social lounge that will be opening in a couple of months
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Tom Beller's the best.
Tom Beller.
And then Lansing, of course. Coldwater has 13 dispensaries. Have you guys ever been to Coldwater?
Mm.
It has 13 dispensaries and a drive-in movie theater. So
No, I think I did drive through Coldwater, headed back from Grand Rapids one time.
I will add that to your list of must-sees in Michigan.
13 dispensaries, and it's a small little town, you said?
Oh, yeah. And there is a drive-in movie theater, one of 6 here in Michigan. Yeah, sure. We have a dispensary out there.
I bet some people take the pot there.
Well, with 13 retail facilities, I bet they do.
You think?
I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure they did before
I don't
13
think so.
retail
Right.
dispensaries.
Movies and
popped up,
pot just
actually.
don't go together. That's a lot of
That's
people
true.
think that for some reason, but it's really.
I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to admit to smoking pot to like white guys and beanies, right? I definitely not smoking pot, officer. When we went to, do you guys remember when we went to Colorado the year that they legalized marijuana and they had that high times thing? And there were all these signs that said, don't smoke marijuana in public. And my mom made me stop at all of them and get pictures of her smoking marijuana in front of them. And they popped up in my memories. I think it was right before they started doing cops back to back here.
Well, it was 2014, maybe, Joe's?
It's all just one big blur. But yeah,
Brian
was
Bold, yeah,
they have those signs now all up here. And my mom's doing the same thing. How many pictures can I get smoking weed in front of these signs?
Yeah, Jerry Farnell, Ryan Bringold, Stephen Green, and myself went out representing the Radio Weed Show. We did a way back then. We were still doing cannabis radio back in those days, and we broadcast live from the big place in Denver. And because we had press badges, we could go anywhere. And at that time, they just made cannabis legal, and only in-state people could go into the special areas. And we were fortunate enough to be able to go. It was just like a regular High Times here. Rip stations, just walk right up and take a dab. People throwing cannabis joints at you. I mean, it was
huge. Yeah, it was. We had a really great spot. Malcolm was the. Everybody misses Malcolm, right?
Dan Sky.
Dan Sky, the
Malcolm
man.
McKinnon, great photographer. We see his photos online every once in a while. But man, as one of the top guys at High Times, he really did a great job managing the magazine, and his contributions to those events made them more successful. He used to let Joe's and Jamie and I run speaking lists. We would have a big tent, and we'd arrange all day different seminars and veteran seminars, moms of sick kids seminars, social justice seminars. It was always
Marijuana fits in so many different things, right? So it's fun to dig into those categories. Please apply for my holiday grant. Please send your friends and your family my way. Also, please apply for an expungement if you need an expungement. I'm going to expunge every motherfucking eligible marijuana crime in the state of Michigan. So bring them to me. We're providing that service.
And try to make some more eligible. There's some things that are out of reach that.
Yeah, the DUI bill passed. So starting the end of February, you'll be able to apply first time and only first time DUIs, which is a barrier for a lot of our neighbors.
Yeah.
Mm.
Joe's, you're awesome. You are awesome.
Thanks for having me on
Sons
here.
and Daughters and Glenn, two Great Lakes Expungement Network, two great organizations that you do great work through. But you drive this stuff, and I know you have Brenda and some really good close people helping out consistently. And
yeah, we have a really good team, and I'm really excited about it. I'm so glad that Amy's here. I think she's doing a lot of really great work. She's doing so much in terms of pediatric patients. So I'm excited to hear what she says.
Thank you. Hi, Josie.
hang out if you'd like, Josey. But we're gonna talk to Amy here for a little bit and find out what's happening around Lansing, and mention that the bills were eligible to be brought up on session, but they weren't heard. Likely the votes aren't sitting there right now. Doesn't mean they're not continuing to work for it. Doesn't mean we have to slow down at all either. There's some good stuff coming up that we have planned, and I know you were working all that stuff today, Amy. So just what's going on in general. What kind of
Well, today we decided to invite the senators to the education dinner. So went around and invited all 38 senators to that. And all of them pretty much know about these bills. It kind of seems to be the buzz in Lansing right now, and what's going on. So we are making headway, I feel. And we did meet with a few senators that are very much on our side. So that was really, really nice to run into today. We have a lot of meetings set up for Lobby Day. And we've just been continuing to encourage people to call their reps. And that's kind of the latest and greatest.
So the dinner, many of us have been speaking with lawmakers and discussing these bills, and of course, trying to express our reasons for them to be in opposition. And it becomes kind of obvious that there's a lot of information missing and a lot of confusion in the discussions that they have had already. And Brian Bringold, who may join us, I sent him the link today, and Amy, and a few other people have begun creating a educational dinner for lawmakers to help fill in some of these voids that we've noticed are clearly there and that would be helpful when they're possibly making a decision on bills such as the ones that we're in opposition of right now, or other attempts, other things to consider in the future. Because certainly, even if we were successful here for a while, this group of big money interests isn't just going to stop here. And the more that the lawmakers know, the better for us, at least those who are really interested in understanding the issue much better and being able to have that at their have the ability to consider that kind of stuff when they're making these decisions. So appreciate that.
And part of the reason that it's very important to me and why I wanted to do this education dinner is I fought the mental health care system for 9 years, and I would cry at night knowing that there were people in Lansing making decisions for my family that did not understand what was truly happening. And now I'm at a point to where I found something that helps my son. And a lot of people, know our journey and what we went through. And now again, listening to these questions that they're asking, they're not knowledgeable on our system, and they're going to be making decisions for my child. So it's very important to me. And I tell the staff members and the lawmakers, why it's important to me, because if they're going to be making decisions that's going to affect the 292 minor patients in the state of Michigan, they need to be informed. They need to be knowledgeable so that they can make the proper decision. So I'm really encouraging you, if you do call your state reps, please tell them to attend this dinner. It was put on by the patients and caregivers. I let them know that we're not doing testimony there. We're not going to really dice apart these bills or anything. It's purely for education. And so please let them know. I tell them we're not a business or organization. We are the patients and caregivers of Michigan. So please encourage your rep to go to the dinner.
Amy, we were under the impression after the House Regulatory Reform Committee passed last week these bills out of committee, we were told that they were on a fast track to be approved by the House of Representatives. And many of us, yourself included, Zara Abba, Jamie, it scrambled to talk to lawmakers. Jared Jeffries did a great job organizing. There's a lot of people to give credit to. But at this point, it seems as if they've had to slow their roll because our efforts have stopped them from having that super majority that's necessary in order to win. And we know that they probably will not call a vote in the House unless they're certain they have 75% of the vote, because that's what's needed in order to pass these bills, since they amend voter-directed initiatives. So kudos to all the people who've been reaching out by telephone, by email, or by making personal contact. And for everyone who's going to show to our lobby day on November 4th, thank you very much in advance, and please bring a friend.
Which is not tomorrow.
The merrier.
That is Thursday.
Yeah. Yep. So very important. it's hard to tell exactly how people will vote when they're down in a pinch, but logic is on our side. The arguments of science and compassion are on our side. We have all of the necessary components to sway someone's voice, to sway someone's vote, rather.
We have the truth. They have the resources and the knowledge of how these Lansing works and these processes of moving people's opinion. And they created this hysteria just out of thin air because they know how to do that, and they have this poll, and they've got an economic impact report, and they've been lobbying the lawmakers all this time. But sometimes we start getting into a conversation, and some of these decision makers, these lawmakers who really want to know the truth, are hearing that they've been given bad information, that something is different than they were under the impression of. And though they didn't realize it was going to hurt these people or the small business community or these different things that they care about. And we have been able to change some minds and turn the tide.
You know, one of the things we've heard, Jamie, is that our #NoChanges campaign, which has been very effective in getting people to sign up and to say, I support not making these alterations to the caregiver laws, that's been tried to be twisted against us to show that we're unwilling to cooperate or we're unwilling to negotiate because we use a #NoChanges. But that's an illogical argument made by desperate individuals who don't really have anything else to cling to. Remember, we started the No Changes campaign before these bills were even introduced, just based on the rumors and the whispers and the fear of them.
And the language they were circulating to lawmakers as an idea of potential changes that they were going to actually introduce.
And in fact, we're actually in support of several different changes to the law, including Jaden's law, which Amy can explain a little bit more about. But #NoChanges should never be interpreted by anyone as a sign that we're unwilling to sit down and talk to people who have an open mind on the subject.
And the fair process so far has been unfair.
Yeah, it sure has. Jamie, Amy, did you want to talk about Jaden's law?
Sure. Jaden's law is currently in the Education Committee. It is, I'm trying to think of what the House bill, I should know it, 4797 and 4796. Basically, it would allow students to be able to take their non-smokable medical marijuana while they're at school. It'd be administered just like a pharmaceutical. Currently, I have to walk 1,000 foot. I have to park 1,000 foot away from the school, walk in, sign them out of class, walk him back to the car. It's a little unrealistic for a lot of parents. And like I said before, we have 292 minor patients in the state of Michigan. So it's currently sitting in the Education Committee. I have talked to a few of the reps that are on the Education Committee, and I did get some support. And ended up one rep was a special needs school teacher, and in Alaska, actually. And one of the students had it right in the IEP that he could access his cannabis oil. And so we're still in the works on that. It'll probably be a little bit before it gets pushed through, but that's going to be my next initiative to really focus on once, these bills are figured out, I guess you could say.
And that representative you refer to is that Representative Markkinen?
Yes. Yep.
From the UP, and he is a Republican. And he
yes.
thinks a lot of these things can be solved amidst ourselves without a lot of extra help from the government. And he had a good conversation with him a couple days ago.
He actually sponsored a bill that December 30th came into effect. I think it's House Bill 5085. But it is to allow veterinarians to be able to speak with their clients about medical marijuana for their pets because he realizes the benefits. I read through the bill. It was a great bill. And it talked about the benefits of THC and CBD. And so when I went into his office, of course, I was like, hey, I just want to say thank you on that bill. And how do you feel about children and medical marijuana? So that's how our conversation started, and it went very well.
That's cool.
CBD dog treats are very commonly available, but again, without an authorizing law, anybody licensed by the state takes kind of a risk talking about it. We have a hard time convincing doctors and nurses to be able to talk to people openly about cannabis. Veterinarians are one of those things that people forget about, but they're bound by rules too. Awfully glad that you use that as a way to get in to talk about Jaden's law. Fantastic.
And we have Ryan Bringle joining us. Of course, and just this year we've had him on a lot. He's been involved with organizing the Bridge Walk, bringing that back for the awareness for the types of things that we're even talking about now. And the work with Amy on putting together this educational dinner for the lawmakers as well. Was on Medical Mondays with us last night too.
Yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to come back today, is to kind of go over some of the Medical Monday things. Anybody that did watch it, I took a lot of heat today from a lot of different people, which is fine. I'm used to it. You're not going to bother me like that. It's sneakiness that bothers me, not straight talk. But some people were mad that I invited House of Dank out to Genesee County Township. You know, they don't want the outsiders coming in. And I said, you know, you guys are drowning. Do you care who's throwing the life jackets? That's where we're at right now. And the House of Dank, if they want to step up, you know, first and foremost, let me say this. They're part of the MCA. So they're part of George and Shane's group already. George and Shane are supporting Genesee County Township, or, you know, the businesses there, GC3 and Vehicle City. These guys want to help. They see the need. They're going to conduct themselves respectfully. They're coming out there to show support. We all know the township wants to talk to the residents and the business owners, and these guys understand that. So anybody that's concerned about House of Dank going out there for their selfish needs or to promote their business, I would say that's not something to worry about. If they do come out and support and help you guys out, then accept that support and be thankful for it. You know, let's give these guys a chance to show that they want to be good actors. Everything they said last night, you know, there was pros and cons, but they did make compromises and they said them publicly. Let's see if they follow through.
Ryan, we had
As
Jeremy
long
on
as they
earlier in the
don't-
broadcast, and he very clearly said there's no business opportunity in Genesee Township. They have a prohibition against any businesses. So it's not as if House of Dank would go there to try and set up shop, because that's not even an option.
Exactly. I personally didn't understand why I was fielding the questions, but of course I made calls back and I want to address anybody's concerns. But at this point, we're either all in this together or we're not. And the fact that those guys said that they would work on limiting MCMA product out of their store, that's a win. The fact that they said that they were willing to step up and come to Genesee County, we know that most of their supporters are on the Detroit side of town. So if they're willing to drive an hour to come out there, that's a win. If they're willing to start looking at other sources like More Than Hope to fund More Than Hope and support that organization, that's a win. And that's what we're looking for right now. So
Can I clarify something? Are they MCMA members?
So this is where people have to decide where their line is, and you know, and I'll tell you what people that take issue with them is
Are they members?
No.
they are not members,
All right.
but they continuously do business with MCA.
But they're supporters.
Members. They now at one point, apparently, I don't know all the details. I believe they made a statement that they weren't going to do that, and I don't know if or maybe they just made a pro caregiver statement. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but shortly after that, an employee sent out video of common citizen cannabis coming in to their facility, you know, to be, you know, put into inventory.
To be white labeled and put into inventory.
Correct.
Okay. Yep. And so that's been a really
part.
huge sticking point for a lot of people. So
Yeah, I mean,
Listen,
I just the reason
meanwhile,
why
those guys have done a lot, have donated. I mean, this is just a fact. Have donated a lot of money to a lot of good causes. So have some of the MCMA members too, and that doesn't resolve the issue for them. So it's, you know,
Let's let
Doesn't
Jim
worry
get in
about
there
it.
too, though. Jim is trying to get in.
the reason why I asked, and that makes sense. And if it comes down to inventory and they're not a member of MCMA and they need to go and find inventory for their business to stay afloat,
that's what their discussion was last
then
night.
that I mean, to me, that makes sense for a business to have to do that.
And that's why I find it reasonable to work with them.
I know,
It has
Ryan.
to be
I'm just,
reasonable.
I want to understand, and I'm,
So,
you know, I'm behind you on that. So cool. Not that I
Adam.
know.
well, just for the record, the Hells Angels does a hell of a Christmas program, and the KKK has a Widows and Orphans Fund, and I could go on and tell you all the great and wonderful things that the Nazi Party did while they were destroying the world, but that doesn't change the facts. And the facts are that House of Dank is putting money in the pockets of people who are then spending that money to go after the caregiver system. So
That's
they can do all the
100%.
good stuff.
That's
They can do all the
100%,
good
Adam.
stuff. Matter of fact, let them do the good stuff and not tell anybody, because House of Dank happens to be one of the few people that uses this as their social equity program and tells everybody all the wonderful things that they do, while at the same time deal with things like the MCMA issue. And that's not the only issue. There's been other issues over the years. The point is that these people may be on our team, okay? They may be on our team. But so was the fat kid when we played baseball, and he was a team member. He wasn't very good, but he was a team member, right?
Here's
The difference is these are adults.
Here's the
These are
difference,
adults.
though. These guys are making
And their
commitments.
business model should fail if it requires that product.
They're making commitments to change, and you got to respect that. If they're willing to take those products off the shelf moving forward, then we should give them that opportunity.
You're the one that said you didn't like the shadiness. They said they were willing to make commitments to change. They said they were going to change. And then their own employee outed them for buying 20 bows.
I
Now,
can judge them on what they
I
said
don't
yesterday.
No, I understand what they said yesterday. Mind you, I haven't seen it yet, but it was told to me. My point is this. I have no dog, no horse in this race. I just hate the hypocrisy of what I'm seeing. And that's why I have this ill will towards companies. And it's not just House of Dank, but ill will towards these companies that play this, you know, I gotta rescue my business. If I don't purchase product from the enemy, I'm gonna go out of business. Well, guess what? That says, as Rick Thompson taught me over and over, that says that you have a bad business plan and a bad model, and it doesn't work. And you know what? If the MCMA was selling tainted product, they wouldn't have that opinion, would they? Or maybe they would, because, well, they have to support the MCMA. They've been taking care of them. I have a real problem with this, because in the real game of life, it wouldn't be pleasant. We're pot people. We don't do what other industries do to their enemies.
This is an old argument or a discussion about virtue signaling versus actual change. Virtue signaling is someone who does something good, but in reality, they have an awful lot of baggage that they're trying to cover up for, versus someone who's just doing something out of the goodness of their heart to try and help out. And I think when you do something out of the goodness of your heart to help out, it's okay to publicize that, but that should be a pattern of behavior that you've had, not just something that you come around and do new. I can't speak to House of Dank's pattern of behavior. I honestly wouldn't know anything. So it's possible they've been doing great things for a long time and we've just never heard about it. And if that's the case, then it's probably less virtue signaling and more sincerity. But when I see something like Pleasantries taking advantage of Rick Wershey and things like that, that seems more like virtue signaling to me. You're trying to accumulate, people who need help, like you're paying for carbon credits. Like, look at me, I'm taking care of all of my evils by throwing some money at a couple of people, and I'll make some progress out of them.
That's a great analogy, Rick Thompson. Carbon credits.
Right.
Now, the left may think it's a good one, but the right should also understand it for what it is.
Yep.
And the reality is that until it makes sense, it's kind of like recycling. Until it's cost effective, it doesn't make any sense. But we still do it. It took Ann Arbor, I think, 20 years before their recycling program was cash flow positive. But they did it because that's what you have to do. This isn't one of those scenarios. This is bad business.
Well, I think time is the only way to know who's saying they're going to do good things and who actually is going to do good things. You can certainly look at the integrity of the individual people and make a decision. Again, I don't know any of the people from House of Dank. I'm not in a position to make a decision about integrity. But the only way we can decide whether or not they're just bullshitting us or whether they're going to put up is if they do things like Ryan said, show up at November 9th in Genesee Township and speak on behalf of caregivers. I just saw Jerry Millen from a greenhouse put a video sitting on a fence right in front of his shop that says, hey, I'm a big licensed guy and I wouldn't be here without caregivers. I don't support changes to the caregiver laws. So when you see people like Patrick Frakes, who came on our program and very publicly said, look, a lot of my friends are still active current caregivers. And so was I at one point. These are folks that are taking kind of a risk to stand out.
And Russ Chambers and Botanical Company in Franklin Field supporting Cass. Cass has come in and done tremendous work in some of these meetings with the lawmakers.
Tom Bell, Kevin Bibas, Ryan Bastor. Yes, so many people successful in this industry that started as caregivers, Jamie.
Oh, yeah, totally. But I was just pointing out in that lineup of those people from the industry that support, and I'm supported by those guys too to be working on this, and just adding that into the discussion. We all don't want this. The only people that want this are the MCMA members and those who they've been able to bullshit or influence.
Well,
and
let me have an opportunity to upset another group of people here real quick. As you know, the dinner, let me get this in there we go. The dinner is November 9th. This cannabis education dinner is for lawmakers only. I've had endless calls and endless requests about time, place, and how do you attend. If you're not a lawmaker, this dinner is not for you to attend. I'm not trying to upset people, but the design is for education, for the lawmakers. There's a security issue. So understand it's nothing personal. We're not excluding anybody. We're excluding everybody because it's not a kegger. It's a lawmakers educational dinner paid for by caregivers.
Yeah, and it's also the same night.
Will that be streamed? Can you guys stream it?
That's something that we'll have to discuss as a team.
That'd be good, or at least make it available to view later. I think that would be really good. And I also suggest doing it on a yearly basis and get all newbies, lawmakers that, are new to the system, get them a handbook and get them going every year to get them up to speed on laws.
Well, that legislative caucus for cannabis was just created this last year. Hopefully that helps out with keeping the information, the education, and the awareness up on that. But I just want to say too, that's the same night as
I know this is going to sound a little out there.
Go ahead, Adam.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I know this is going to sound out there, which coming from me ain't going to surprise anybody. But what I'd really like to see happen with these politicians, Ryan, is I'd like to have a sesh and have them attend the sesh and see what happens when people sit around and get high. Because I guarantee you those motherfuckers have no idea what people like you and me go through. And how you can oversmoke yourself and decide to take a nap. Or whatever. I mean, they have no clue. They'll admit they don't smoke weed. Every one of them admits there's only one legislator I know, two legislators I know that smoke weed. One's a representative and one's a state senator. Okay? I've smoked with both of them.
The House rep from Farmington Hills smokes also. She's a cancer survivor.
Okay. No problem.
Well,
Then we don't need to
Cynthia
invite those
obviously
people
does.
to-
She's been live on these broadcasts smoking before.
Cynthia Johnson.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cynthia's one of
Yes,
us.
she's one of them. She's one of my two. The point is, these people claim that they're educatable. Please, Ryan, we'd love to come to your event. We'd love for you to teach us about cannabis and what we don't understand about these bills. Please, please, please. Okay, you want to learn? Here, I'm going to bring you to a pot sesh. I mean,
It'd be nice to take.
Hey, we'll
you to
get there.
City.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we were talking about the real
Yeah,
world,
but
not,
Jamie,
not
by
the
the time we get
hypothetical
there, it
rich
ain't
world.
gonna
But yeah,
matter.
yeah. I mean, Ryan's
problem
event is
by
an
the time
actual
we
real
get
one,
there, it ain't gonna matter.
right? By the way,
That's why
December
I'm all-
6th is the anniversary of legalization in Michigan. December 6th, any lawmaker that would like to should come down to Cannabis Council, where Michigan Normal will be joining with the forces of the attorneys there to host a little event. And I promise you, any lawmaker that walks into the legal offices of Cannabis Council that night will see a bunch of us sessioning. And as
Listen,
Adam said,
I'll
what a
pay-
great experience it will
I'll
be
pay-
for them.
You remember that? It was. It might have been the night of the
I'll pay
law
for the
passing. Go
bus.
ahead, Adam.
I'll pay for the bus to bring 45 of these motherfuckers from Lansing to Cannabis Council that night, if that's what it takes.
We'll
put it out there.
I'm serious.
That's what
I
I'm
really
talking
feel like
about.
they don't understand.
Right.
I'm gonna sell that all during the dinner.
Please, you tell them, drop my name. Mr.
I will.
Hashbash wants you guys to sesh with him.
Sold.
Tell them they can show up April 2nd on the Diag. I'll have a joint for every one of them. And I'll
Pretty
give
sure
them a
Anthony
speaking
Freed with
spot,
Apothecary will have his.
contrary to the fact that I have nothing to do with it.
Let's get them to Cannabis Council first, one step
Yeah.
at a time.
So,
Anthony Freed from Ann Arbor probably will be willing to haul some people in his special bus
that's right,
back and
yeah.
forth. He's an awesome guy, and that sounds just exactly like the kind of thing he'd sink his teeth into.
So, is there a chance that the bills get heard tomorrow? Yeah, there's a chance, but we don't think the votes are going to be there right now. So we probably have the ability to at least get our lobby day in before we're thinking about what they might do next week.
And our dinner.
And then hopefully the dinner too. There would be a chance that they could bring them up before the dinner. It doesn't seem like at this point that they will, and that's great. That's great for us.
So just for our listeners, what we're talking about with the November 4th lobby day and November 9th dinner, the House of Representatives in Michigan only meets Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So they would have an opportunity, for example, today, this broadcast is happening on a Tuesday, for Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday this week to meet. We're told they're not going to, but they could potentially meet on Tuesday of next week, which would be the 9th, just before our dinner takes place. However, as Jamie just mentioned, we believe that we've successfully stopped them from having the number of votes they need right now in order to pass that supermajority. And gracefully, because boy, it sure looked like all weekend long we were thinking they were going to vote Tuesday or Wednesday just to get it done before our lobby day. Amy Carter, don't you think? I mean, you heard that same thing too, didn't you?
Yes, I did hear that same thing. And I was actually in Lansing today, and I looked on the online agenda, and it said they were up for a second reading. It is 89 and 90. It was on there, but from what I understand, that didn't happen. And we found out that, I mean, it could happen tomorrow, but I don't think it's going to. I have a good feeling that we're going to get to at least next week. After, it should work out just fine. I feel okay about it. I've went both ways.
Momentum with these meetings, with the ability to lobby on Thursday and the ability to educate on the following Tuesday. Steven's asking what time Thursday. People are meeting at the offices of the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association.
9 a.m.
About 9 a.m. On Thursday.
Now we have some of our first meetings are as early as 9:30, and some of them run as late as 3:30 in the afternoon. So if you're still trying to participate, you may want to show up even if it's a little bit later, and we might still be able to direct you to meet up with one of the existing groups that's already out there talking to lawmakers. So if you're a little bit tardy, don't think you missed it. We could use your participation all day long, even if you meet with just a single person. I mean, every yes vote on these bills is just one story away from being a no vote. Maybe your story is the one that makes a difference to that lawmaker.
There's gonna be coffee and donuts there, I think, in the morning.
Oh, shit.
That's why I'm showing up.
Yeah, I will stop eating now. So
You
I
know,
can
one
get
time I
really
went to an
hungry for that.
event in Ann Arbor, and there was donuts, but there was no coffee.
That happened one time up north too, I heard.
And then that happened at the bridge walk one time too. Yeah.
I will never let that happen again.
Oh, wow.
I want to take one more second, and then I won't speak probably for the rest of the show. I want to thank Jamie Lowell and Amy Carter, especially for the work they've done in the last 2 weeks. They are on the phone nonstop. If they're not talking to me, they're talking to lawmakers or lawmakers' representatives. Nobody knows what they do because you guys don't tell people what you do, but I will. They are working 24/7 taking calls for all the caregivers. They're making meetings. They're making things happen. And they deserve a lot of respect for what they do. They have their private lives, wives, families, kids, and they've been on it for 2 weeks, harder than anybody else that I've talked to. So I want to say thank you to both of you because you're my heroes.
I appreciate it, man. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Yep. I've seen it firsthand. True. Zara Abbas
Zara
also
Abbas, yeah.
have been doing a fantastic job. I mean, the list of people that have really been reaching out to legislators and lawmakers pretty big, but there are some folks that stand out. So,
Yeah, man. But this is okay. So I've said this before. This is the most formidable challenge we've had. But we got some echo. But this is also
I like
like
hearing me
the
voice. That's awesome.
most unified. A lot of our different groups and individuals and different facets of the community have been able to kind of come together and be shoulder to shoulder here against this threat.
It took a
everything we've appealed-
catalyst.
Go ahead, Adam, please.
Oh, I was just going to say it took a catalyst to make this happen. Okay. It took Ryan saying, hey, you know what? I need to get the bridge walk. Hey, I need to do a rally in Lansing. And that little catalyst right there, that little action there meant that caregivers and patients at the grassroots level were woken up and they realized, hey, we need to do something. And over the last couple of months, this thing's really started to get to the point that we are being notice is being taken, not just by the legislator, but by all the players in the game. So yes, House of Dank is taking notice. The MCMA is taking notice. Wow.
Terrapin sent out a letter when we boycotted them online. They responded.
Right. And some of these companies, Pleasantries, for instance, the example that we use from Medical Mondays is that, they came on the show. They basically tried to talk their way out of trouble. And before the end of the show, they doubled down with their opinion and said, yeah, we're leaving the MCA, but we still agree with everything they're doing. Mm-hmm. So we're just that alone, when that happened, that told me, you know what, we got something going here. This is really something. And if we're able to pull this together, I mean, this concept of a meal to sit down legislators and explain to them something that they should know about, but don't.
Here's what impresses me, though. What we talk about in talking with the lawmakers, hugely important, but engagement from our community. When we put on social media, we need people to write letters. I can't believe how many letters are getting written. When we said we need phone calls to be made, the number of calls is staggering. Amy, Ryan, and Jamie, you guys can testify. When we talk to these lawmakers, they say things like, we've had a lot of response from constituents on these particular bills. We talked to a lawmaker, I don't know, yesterday morning, Jamie, where he said, I'm in a committee across the way from you guys from regulatory reform. I've never seen that many people show up for a committee hearing.
Yeah.
That's engagement on the part of our community. We have leaders, but it's the body of people doing the real work out there that's making the difference with the lawmakers. And that's why we don't have a vote this week, it seems. Seems like you guys are really doing a great job. Continue forward, and God bless all of you for what you've done.
Right on. Hey, so we do have to kind of wind up, but I've really appreciated this conversation so far. Adam, you were just kind of taking a minute. Is there anything you want to wrap up with? In addition
No,
to...
I'm kind of lost. I couldn't find sugar in this apartment for my tea, so I'm really at a loss for words here, because I'm having a hard time. But I just want to let people know that these next few days, the phone calls, all of that, we need to keep that up. I do know that I believe it was Representative Lilly had his office staff start to tell phone callers that this was not his office. That's how many calls he was getting. So we know we made a difference. The question is, can we make change? How do you make change? Well, we might have to work a little harder at this, but it's doable. It's obviously doable, and it's all about education. So the more people involved, the better. It's that simple.
Right on. Hey, Amy, anything you want to add or make sure people know about?
Just to elaborate on that, we have done a good job of people calling and writing letters, and it is a very they talk about it, the staff members and stuff. So let's do a big push and get as many phone calls. And the thing is you can call at all hours of the night. You can call all 110 representatives and just leave them a message and tell them that you are in opposition. Leave your name, address, phone number, and call them all. Have your friends call. We could do a challenge and be like, hey, let's see how many people we can get to call, because it does make a difference when they're getting in all these calls. They're going to start paying attention and be like, we really got to look into this, and then tell them they have to go to this education dinner that it urged them to go. So leave that on your voicemail as well.
Right on.
I would just add to what Amy just said that it wouldn't hurt to say that you are one of their constituents. That is an important word. On the checklist at every desk, there is one for constituent calls and one for non-constituent calls. I am an activist. My job is to inform you how to activate. I don't care if it's truthful or not. Tell them you are a constituent. Google the McDonald's in his community and tell him you live around the corner. The point is, it makes a difference. And all is fair in love and war, right? Isn't that how it goes?
Definitely go to your own lawmaker for sure, where you really are the constituent. That is meaningful. And if you want to take Adam's advice, you can.
Yeah, Jamie's a little more politically correct than I am.
So, yeah, and Jim, and the Proppy in Detroit, lowest level law enforcement Detroit, we're really pulling for that. I know that ultimately that's a different group. There's different groups all over the state now trying to do stuff, but you're kind of like more of the statewide board, and it really spawned a lot of this activity and stuff. So
yeah, there's decriminalize nature, Ypsilanti, and also Flint forming. So if you're in either one of those cities as well, please start reaching out on Facebook or Instagram, or even reach out to me, and I can get you in touch with those people in those cities. And then tomorrow at the Pyramid Scheme in Grand Rapids is a fundraiser for Decriminalize Nature Grand Rapids and getting things done there. And that starts at 6:00 at the Pyramid Scheme.
Right on. Yeah, so we had Jeremy on earlier. That was really good about Genesee Township. Thanks to him. Thanks to Josey talking about sons and daughters and her.
Give Ryan a chance to wrap up if you need to.
In the holiday drive. Okay, he did say, I'm going to say one more thing, and then that's it. And I just decided to take him at his word. But since he is shifty like that, he probably wants to get a little bit more in. Here's your opportunity, Ryan. You wiggled back into the discussion now.
The door was kicked open, but no, really, it just boils down to this. I do need everybody in Genesee Township November 9th. Those of you who want to do something, this is the time. Go there and be respectful. Support the community. That's what we need. The team that's running the dinner, they've got that covered. So don't worry about that. The lawmakers are going to get the education that they haven't received to this point. But we need you at Genesee Township Hall at 7244 North Genesee Road.
Right on. So, all right, Rick, why don't you wrap us up?
Well, today is an election day in Michigan. There were 5 ballot proposals that would do different things to businesses. And then, of course, Prop E in Detroit, E for easy. We hope everyone votes to liberate entheogenic substances. But importantly, though, we talked about successes. Prop E, that's a success. I mean, win or lose, getting it on the ballot in Detroit, that's a success. And it follows on the heels of a successful Ann Arbor proposition for the same thing, too. We're at this particular time, we're actually in the driver's seat for media to a certain degree. Money buys a lot of things, but what it doesn't buy is public support. And we have public support on our side. Continue to utilize your voice, continue to recruit other people to do the same thing too. Keep your eye on social media, because that's the best way for us to communicate and get out and participate. We need you now more than ever before. And when we need you to write letters, we'll say write letters. When we need you to make calls, make calls. And as Ryan Bringold said, when we need you to show up, that's where we need you to be on November 9th. Please participate in that. Participate in November 4th Lobby Day, the December 6th party at Cannabis Council celebrating the anniversary of legalization in Michigan. And keep watching Jazz Cabbage Cafe on your televisions and your computers, and listening to us through Alexa and Spotify and all the other services we have. We're doing our very best to get the message out, and you can help us do that.
All right. Jazz Cabbage Cafe. Thanks a lot, Rick. Appreciate that. And we'll be back again next week. Thanks, everybody, for being on with us. And
Peace.
we'll do it again soon. Jazz Cabbage Cafe.